This episode of the Construction Record is brought to you by the Ontario Sewer and Water Main Construction Association. Clean water is everybody's business.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Construction Record podcast. And I have a special guest today, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, guys. I'm Andy. I come from Kitchener, Ontario, and I am a 309A construction and maintenance electrician.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about some of the projects or some of the work that you do in your career.
So when I first started my apprenticeship, right now I am a journey person candidate. So I have completed all the hours and all of the schooling for my apprenticeship, and I'm just waiting to write my CFQ, my test, my big test. And so at the beginning of my apprenticeship, I started out working in construction. So I worked in new build, residential and commercial construction. So I worked on things like dormitories or apartment buildings. And I think the coolest thing that I worked on was a bowling alley, which was really neat. In the past couple months, I have since transitioned into a new type of electrical. I now work in the automation industry, which very, very basically, I get to work with robots.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'm nerding out over here.
Wow. So you give the robots their juice that they need.
That's right.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
We work on the safety and making sure they do what they're supposed to,
of course,
prevent total world domination,
Keep them in their place.
That's right.
How did you get into the construction sector? Was it a family member? Did you see an advertisement? Was it just something you've always been interested in? I'm always curious, and I think a lot of our listeners are curious, how people find themselves in trades careers.
So for me, I started off, my path in high school really took me towards university. I was a very high-level competitive athlete. And I went on scholarship and ended up being a dual sport athlete at my university in Montreal, Quebec. And I competed there for a little while, and then I had a career-ending injury. So then I realized that, oh man, this degree kind of sucks. This isn't what I want to do. I don't want to sit behind a desk for the rest of my life. So right. I started kind of looking into different avenues and what I could do to keep myself out of trouble and keep myself from being bored. And I sent my dad to the local community college, and I said, okay, you know me best of everybody, go grab me some pamphlets, my future's in your hands. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So he came back and he had picked up I think it was sports administration, it was a renovation tech program, and then the electrical program. And so I kind of was up in the air between electrical and renovation, and that was kind of all she wrote. I did a 2-year program. I ended up deciding I could make a little bit more money in electrical than in renovations. So
yeah,
my greediness kind of formed my path.
you're you want a quality of life. I maybe a bit better way to put it.
Yeah, I have a very expensive tool addiction to pay for. So.
Oh wow. Were you interested in tools and kind of fixing things and doing stuff before that, or have you gotten into it a lot now?
No, not at all before I started this program. I like to say that I'd never really, I knew which way the hammer to use, but I had never really done much stuff around the house. I never took a shop class in school, none of that stuff, but kind of it was I like to say my light bulb moment.
That's very nice. That's very nice.
Thank you. A little electrician humor for you.
Yeah. I think that's interesting because I think, I'm a journalist and I'm kind of intimidated. If someone put me on a job site, I wouldn't know what I was doing. I haven't done that much tools. Do you think that other people might feel that way? Were you intimidated when you first had to have all these new tools and all these things and you didn't have a background in it necessarily? Or did it come a little easy?
It was pretty intimidating, I can't lie. When I started my program back, 8 years ago now, I had never really owned my own set of tools or anything. I'd never really used power tools very much. But the program that I was in started us off very basic, and it was formed with safety in mind. and taught us how to use them. This is what this tool is for. So I had that little basis of knowledge that brought me into when I was actually on the job site. I had a clue, but I can just imagine, especially being a woman in trades, how hard and how intimidating that might be for someone who's totally green going onto a job site. That would be really tough for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I mean, our industry is always talking about how they want to attract, more kinds of people, young people, women, people of color, different kind of underrepresented groups. And they're trying to change kind of the culture of job sites. And I'm curious, what has been your experience being on job sites? What is it like to be, a minority, an underrepresented group on a job site?
Well, I like it. I like being special and standing out a little bit. But again, I understand how it could be very difficult for some people. In my experience, I've been about 5 years working in the field. I worked with a general builder for a year before I started my apprenticeship, and I've always been the largest minority. I have worked with many men of color, and it's always been, I can count on two hands the amount of women that I've had on another job site, let alone working at the same company as me. So I find that is an interesting, maybe demographic, but I myself, I like being the only woman usually, but it has its moments. Sometimes it can be very lonely. I found at my last company there was the guys that were working in the field, like myself, and then there was the ladies, the secretaries that work in the office, and you're kind of a part of both groups, but kind of not really a part of either group. And it was kind of a very isolating spot to be in, being the only woman on the tools there. So
yeah, kind of like isolating your, from kind of both worlds, I guess, in between.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird spot to be in at the Christmas party.
What would be your advice for someone who is maybe new, like yourself, years and years ago, just starting, they're learning the tools, they're on some of their first job sites. What are some things that you've learned over the years that you maybe could suggest to new young people, women, people of color who are kind of fresh in this industry?
I'd say for anybody fresh in this industry, my biggest piece of advice would be to ask questions, but to ask smart questions. So if it's actually something that you don't understand, look for an explanation first, try and figure it out on your own within time, an appropriate time amount.
Sure.
But then ask questions and make sure you listen to the answers and actually take heed of the answers, so you're not asking the same questions over and over. That makes a huge difference. It shows that when your journeyman or an older apprentice is taking the time to explain something to you, you're actually paying attention and you're actually taking their, I use expertise in air quotes, but their expertise to heed, and you're actually learning from it. So I ask questions. Long answer short, ask questions.
But good questions.
Yes, good questions.
Yeah. What is some of your favorite parts of the job? It seems like you have, your face is lighting up. I know people can't see it, but when you're talking, you're smiling. You seem very excited about what you do. What about your career do you enjoy? What are some of the best parts of it?
I'd have to say, building anything, coming home, finishing a day of work, and knowing, kind of being able to see what you've done that day. I know coming out of university, and I sat there and I read 8 chapters, and that's just not the same as building something with your hands and putting things together and making things work. And especially with electrical, you can put point A to point B and you can wire it up, and you throw a push button in there or a light switch. You throw a switch in, and now all of a sudden your light turns on when you hit the button. There's nothing that compares to that feeling, especially the first time you do it. It's amazing. I love it. I'm very simple.
It's like magic. It's cool to see it happen.
Exactly. And I'm like, well, and in school it's like, this is why this works. And I'm like, no, it's magic.
it's I can't see it. It's magic.
Yeah. Don't try and change don't confuse me with your facts and logic. I've made up my mind.
Now, you said you have a crippling tool addiction that you're having to keep up.
Tool addiction. Yes, I am a big Milwaukee girl. I love Milwaukee tools.
Hmm.
So I have majority of my hand tools. I have a lot of power tools. I have the pack out system, like for tool storage. I'm saving up for a tool bench, and like it's
Wow.
expensive. And
Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say my husband's an electrician as well. So between the two of us, we've got 3 sets of tools between each of us having our own work tools. And
Just
then
flexing on each other. Who's got the
That's
best
right.
tools?
Well, we both know it's me.
Oh my. And you mentioned you're doing a lot of projects. Like during the pandemic, even before, have you found yourself kind of learning new ways to use your construction skills to kind of do projects around the house or just pursue other things?
Yeah, we're working on flipping our kitchen right now. So that's pretty exciting. And I've got dreams of, I need, like, what am I going to do on my counters? Okay, I'm going to want my coffee maker. I need my coffee. So coffee maker takes priority. Okay, I need a circuit for that. So I know I'm going to need another one here. And I go back through all my code knowledge that we learned. And I know how, like, I need to do split receptacles or 20 amp receptacles on my countertop. Like, these are the things that now I'm able to bring what I've learned, and I can have as many receptacles as I want in my kitchen. I can plug everything in, and I will be happy and not grumpy in the morning like usual.
You get your coffee as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Like hook up my IV drip of the coffee straight to my arm, and we're good to go.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. That's maybe not safe.
Yeah, no electrical for that. Right.
Yeah, no electrical for that. What are some of the most useful skills that you think you've learned during your construction career that you have applied to other things? I think you just kind of went through a few of them.
Yeah. So, well, my biggest one would be realizing safety, like how important that is. No matter what you're doing, have your PPE, like your work boots on if you're doing a project, eye protection, hearing protection. Those are things that are going to last you for your entire life. So those are the things you really want to take care of. And now it's like, I'm young and people, well, relatively young, and people make jokes about like the safety squint. And it's just like, you like kind of shut your eyes while you're cutting something. And I'm just like, ugh. As I myself have learned the hard way, I have been hit in the eye with stuff and had to go to the eye doctor and actually cut my eye. And so like, that is probably the number one most widely, like, that'll work for anything, any kind of renovations projects, anything you're doing, is safety comes first, and go about it the right way. Don't cut corners with it. But also using tools, I now have a greater understanding of different tools, how they should be working, to maintain them, keeping them working in good working order. So I know that I'm using it safely. So I'd say that's probably probably some of my best skills for it.
There you go. Now I have some tradesmen and tradeswomen friends, and often we'll drive in the car and they'll point and be like, I worked on that, I did this, I did that. What are some of those projects for you that you know, when you're driving in the car and you kind of smile and go, oh, and do you have a few of those that kind of stick out in your mind?
I do. So I've worked for the last 5 years in my hometown, and like my cousins all went to university here, and I'll drive past like one of the dormitories that I worked on, and I'm like seeing lights on in the windows. Well, less so now with COVID, but
sure.
Like seeing lights on in the windows, and I'm like, oh, I did that. Like, and I'm like, I don't remember if I worked on that floor, but and like I said before, we did a bowling alley as well, which was really cool. I got to learn about like pin setters and how a laser quest thing works, because that was in that same building, which was really neat. So there was a lot of stuff that I'd never worked on before in there, and every time we go in, and I'm just like, yeah, you're welcome, everyone.
Well, I used to be on a bowling team, so I thank you for keeping the bowling facilities running properly. I appreciate it.
Another cool one that I got to work on was a theater. So it's really cool being able to, like, when you're working in these kind of things, is I've now been in places in these buildings that 90% of the general public will never get to see.
Hmm.
which is very cool. And some of it's super scary because like we often work in the dark. So I was like, place is 100% haunted.
Oh, what?
So I was like, do not leave me alone in this dark basement, please.
Like, occupational hazard. Wear your anti-ghost gear, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Bring my Ghostbusters to work with me. But yeah, so that was pretty neat. Got to work up really high, like above the stage. We were up like 90 feet and
Wow.
working on like a mesh floor, which was really cool. So some of those things that I'm very thankful for this first job that I did, because we had some very, very cool jobs, and like it's stuff that had I not been working there, I doubt I ever would have had those kind of opportunities. So that was really neat.
Now, you did mention COVID. What's it been like working in the construction sector kind of through this global pandemic? I know in some places construction has stopped or it's been deemed essential. What's been your experience in Ontario?
It slowed down a little bit. I worked through most of it last year. I was set to be laid off for a month around September. And then I got my invitation to my last section of school. So I ended up being laid off for about 4 months total. But for the most part, I was working through the whole thing. I think we had reduced hours for a little while. I actually had my first anxiety attack because of COVID.
Oh, wow.
And working on a job site. So that was pretty intense. I had come home. I had taken my last trip before COVID hit, and I had gone down to Texas for a girls' weekend in Texas, like April. And so we were cutting it a little short on that one. But
Yeah.
so we came back, and I had worked a week after I was back, and then I had a headache, and I stayed home from work, and they're like, well, that's a symptom, so you're home for 2 weeks. And I was like, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I was home for my 2 weeks, and my first day, the following Monday, back at work, and I felt like someone was sitting on my chest, and I didn't want anybody to come near me. And I've never experienced anything like that before. I was scared to be at work, and I've never had that before. And just the amount of safety precautions and like cleanliness precautions that were now put in that hadn't been there the 2 weeks before were staggering. But also it was hand wash stations, like, and I was like, well, where are the other 50 that should be here? And I'm not sure if it was like, actually there should have been 50 more, or if it was just my fear like skyrocketing. But and then like they're 6 feet, and we're working in hallways that are 6 feet wide at best. So I'm like, how is somebody supposed to work here and have people passing by them all day? Like, just some things in construction weren't set up for social distancing, of course. So, and it was interesting some of the ways that we were able to work around it and still stay within like our parameters of our safety. But yeah, it was pretty scary for a couple hours for sure that morning. But the more I worked, the better it got. So thank goodness.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people, like even myself, when I go somewhere and all of a sudden there's a lot of people, I have like this little panic that I didn't have before. And I don't know, maybe when this is all over, it's going to take a little while to kind of deprogram that anxiety of like large groups close together.
If it ever goes away, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know I was at the grocery store the other day, and someone was standing really close behind me, and I was like, what are you, sir? Like, please
Excuse
don't.
me.
And then I was like, how far did I used to stand to people in a grocery store? Like, how far did I used to stand? I couldn't remember. And I was like, holy crap.
It's adorable for me to think of the person that I was and the world that I lived in just, a year ago today. Yeah. It's strange.
It was wild. Like, she was so cute and had no idea what was coming.
Not a care in the world.
Just flying off to Texas.
Yep.
On a whim.
We'll end with this. What would be your advice to someone who was like yourself, years ago, sending your father to get pamphlets, looking for a career, and they're thinking about the trades? What would be kind of your advice to them if they're considering something like this?
I found that being in like a job fair, going to job fair, and like I said before, even asking questions, but like I myself, as a student as well as an apprentice, I will still go back to my college and I go and I talk about my experience working as a woman, as someone who's gone through this particular program, if it's something maybe you're thinking about, and I will stand and talk to you. I will stand and talk to anybody, answer them questions. They ask me questions like, oh, my son is very good at this. Do you think he would like it? And I thought, well, like, we can talk about it for sure. Like, to how much money do you make? What are your working conditions? What are your working hours? And I know for women in trades, there are a ton of events where I know for high school students, we put on an event called Jill of All Trades. And so we have, I again loosely use the word professionals like myself who come out and we teach these girls coming up through high school about the trades, and it's actually a hands-on event. So they pick 3 events like plumbing, welding, electrical, drywall, hairstyling, cooking, like it goes the whole gauntlet of our red skilled trades, and they get to try out these different trades. So I would say get your hands dirty, ask people around you, reach out. LinkedIn is a great networking tool. I've been approached a lot on LinkedIn, Instagram as well. There's a lot of trades accounts that are super friendly and they're always willing to talk to you about it. So ask your questions, find out. Sometimes even places will let you job shadow. Probably not right now with COVID, but generally, like if you follow your safety precautions, you have your hard hat, like steel toe boots and safety glasses, they might let you come on a site and find out exactly what it is somebody does in a day. But it's definitely worth asking the questions, right?
Yeah, how can people follow you on social media or get in touch with you, like you said, on LinkedIn and Instagram and those various things?
So I'm on Instagram is probably my easiest one to get a hold of me, and I am andy.from.electrical. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and my name is Andy Davidson, ANDIE. And I am also on Facebook as Andy Davidson. So feel free to reach out.
All right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us and giving us some of your experience and your insight. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
This episode of the Construction Record is brought to you by the Greater Toronto Sewer and Water Main Contractors Association. Clean water, our goal, our future.